The Elder Scrolls Online, should you play in 2026? That is the question, and the short answer here is yes, absolutely. However, the game has been trucking along since it first launched back in 2014 with regular yearly updates and ongoing support for over a decade now. Overall, I've absolutely adored my time with this game. It has consistently been one of the MMOs I enjoy coming back to on a regular basis. Along with the likes of World of Warcraft and Guild Wars 2, I typically revisit these games for a few weeks to a month every year or so. Now, as for ESO itself, the game, its world, public events, dungeons, raids, trials, battlegrounds, arenas, open world PvP via Cyrodiil, all of this stuff is so great, man. I just love it. Now, combat is often a point of contention, and while I agree it lacks an oomph to it, I also think complaints claiming that it's so bad as to be unplayable are a bit overblown. Like, no, the combat doesn't feel as impactful as God of War, Elden Ring, Terra, or even New World, but for what it is as this hybrid tab target action combat system like a Guild Wars 2, it's fine. Could it be better? Sure, but it's totally playable. And for me, the fact is that nearly everything else about this game I just adore. Dude, look at how good this looks. I love it. Love the vibe in these dungeons here, really do. It's got some of my favorite open world MMO content via the public dungeons. Yeah, let's freaking AoE this shit, dude. I'll toss you some heals if you need it, although he's pretty self-sufficient right now, it seems. I would farm in public dungeons like this for hours on end, because I really enjoy doing it. Getting these huge groups of enemies together and trying to AoE them all down, it's really, really fun. This is probably some of my favorite stuff in MMOs. Going through this kind of difficult content and just coming across random people. Getting this kind of emergent, jolly cooperation. I think it's really fun. That's my favorite thing in MMOs, 100%. The world events are super cool. Oh, there's an active dolmen up. This must be about to start. All these people are showing up right now. Is this about to? Yeah, there we go. Check out this shit, dude. They pulled the inspiration straight from Rift, but I think ESO did a fantastic job with their public group events like this. I think these are really cool, really well done. There are some like 100+ group dungeons in the game, along with trials, raids, and arenas. Just so much PvE content. Yeah, it's a big game, dude, too. And the nice thing about ESO, similar to Guild Wars 2, is all that content stays relevant. It's not quite the same as in WoW. Like, all of those dungeons, all of those zones, no matter what level your character, you can still run it, and it'll be good for you. There'll be shit that's valuable for you to unlock. Is there content for small groups, like 2 people in ESO? ESO is really good at having a wide variety of different content types tailored to different group sizes. Yep, they've got everything from solo content to small scale content, massive scale PvP with Cyrodiil. They've got large scale group content. I think trials are 12-man. So yeah, they kind of got a little bit of everything in that regard. And not too long ago, they introduced this overland difficulty scaling, which has managed to really reinvigorate my enjoyment of the open world. It's actually a lot of fun now that enemies don't just fall over when a gust of wind blows by. What do you think about the new challenge mode? I really like it, dude. It's nice to have the open world actually be challenging now. You know what I mean? I need my pet to fucking stun these things. Thank you. I can tell when the dot's on him because he actually has burning on him, which is nice. See, look at how much more engaging this combat is over like core difficulty. Isn't this great? I love it, dude. It just makes it more engaging because you actually, literally, you have to be more engaged. You have to pay attention. And lastly, I just really love spending time in this world. The whole setting, the tone, and the atmosphere, it regularly impresses me when I play, even for a game that's over a decade old. Holds up pretty well here, actually. Looking at this. Guess I would say, you know, the starter zones in ESO maybe hold up better than the starter zones in something like Guild Wars 2 do. Oh, dude, this fucking delve looks sick. Look at this. Wow, they've done a really good job with these expansion zones. They got some nice background sound effects too with those Tweety birds. Oh, and then there's the fact that besides all of these baseline reasons that I enjoy the game, the things that have more or less been the case the entire time it's existed, you've also got all of the updates, changes, and improvements. As with every long-standing MMO, these games that have been around for over a decade and getting supported, ESO has also been getting regular content updates. Now, for many years, this has come in the form of chapters and DLCs. So for example, back in 2022, it was the year of High Isle. So in the spring of that year, they launched the Ascending Tide DLC, which came with 2 new dungeons, new gear sets, and a bunch of other stuff with some base game updates. And then in the summer, you had the big High Isle chapter update that came out. This added the brand new massive playable zone of High Isle, along with 30 hours of story content, on top of all of the usual open world stuff, new points of interest, towns, public dungeons, delves, etc. There was also a brand new type of world event with these volcanic vents. They added a new 12-player trial, 2 new companions, a new game system via this new card game, and then some new item sets, brand new mythics, collectibles, and achievements. And then in the fall of 2022, they wrapped it up with the Lost Depths. This also added 2 brand new dungeons, 8 additional item sets, and then a bunch of other base game updates. And that cadence of there being one big chapter update with a set theme and location, and then 2 additional dungeon DLCs on top of a bunch of patches throughout the year. This has more or less been how they've been doing updates for Elder Scrolls Online for as long as I can remember. It wasn't when the game first came out, but it feels like for the past 7, 8, 9, or 10 years, they've been doing this chapter and dungeon DLCs with other updates sprinkled in. Well, all of that changed in 2026. This is when they announced the shift to the brand new model of seasons. So the idea here has been the game's going to get more regular updates, and there are going to be some new content and things within them, and there is some theming, but also they're taking the time to address some long-standing issues and adding quality of life improvements, a lot of things that the community has been asking for quite some time. So earlier this year, in April, they began with Season 0. This came with the new zone of the Night Market, which was focused on adding challenging group events, some player experience improvements and quality of life, including free skill respecs, back bar XP improvements, and faster mount training. Now, instead of going up 1% a day, you can go up 3% a day. Some PvP progression system additions, and as well as the first round of combat improvements, which included animation overhauls for the Dragonite class, all of their skill trees, as well as the Werewolf skill tree got an overhaul. And then the last big thing that they added in Season 0, and probably what I think was the most impressive to me of all, was the new overland difficulty options, the new challenge difficulties. This one feature alone has made my latest revisit 1,000 times more enjoyable than many of the prior ones. And it sounds simple, right? It's just scaling difficulty. So you've got 4 different options to choose from, and the higher you go up, the tankier enemies and the more deadlier they become, in exchange for more experience gained and gold dropped. And while that sounds maybe like not much, I think the sole fact that you are no longer one-shotting most enemies in the open world makes the whole experience just significantly more engaging. You actually have to pay attention to enemy attacks, to blocking heavy attacks, to interrupting casted spells, to dodging ground area effects or projectiles coming your way. Hell, for a majority of the enemies that I've encountered and have been fighting while playing in this recent revisit and going through the open world, it's been the first time that I've seen entire move sets and attacks for many of these. Enemies that I have killed no doubt hundreds if not thousands of times over the years had abilities, attacks, and moves that I had never seen before because they always died so quickly. And I get it, some people could argue, oh, they just made them sponges, damage sponges, and they made them deal more damage. Whoop-de-doo, that's boring. But again, I'll say from experience, this higher tier difficulty, playing it over the past few weeks, it added a breath of like fresh life to the open world. It's, again, I've seen entire move sets and attacks and abilities and interactions with enemies that I'd killed hundreds or thousands of times that I didn't know existed, because in the past they would die into attacks. But now it's taking multiple. I'm having to dodge, I'm having to interrupt, I'm having to avoid damage, I'm having to actually try to knock them down after blocking a heavy attack, taking advantage of that off-balance mechanic, like stuff that I've never had to think about or do before because I would walk by with some area of effect ability and they would just die. Now I actually have to pay attention to. What? What the fuck is this boss in here? This guy's, jeez, dude. Is that even a boss or is that just a random minotaur? That thing nearly murdered me twice. It's been unbelievable. I always enjoy the open world in MMOs. It's some of my favorite types of content, going around doing stuff, seeing things, collecting things, trying different activities. But this added challenge difficulty has taken it to another level. I'm just liking it so much more. Okay, so that was season 0. And then just recently on July 8th, they kicked off the first season number 1 official. And this initial content rollout included some new stories and quests, the new system of Sage's Vault, and this multi-stage dynamic world events. Now, there's still more to come in season 1. This is over the course of a few months, like the new challenge of Nowhere Vault, new in-game event of the High Seas, another new trial, and then some combat improvements with an animation overhaul coming next to the Warden class. And then they also have a roadmap for season 2, which comes with some more new zones, new solo dungeons, large-scale world events, and the class refresh for the Sorcerer. Although the timeline for the rest of season 1 as well as season 2 looks to be a bit up in the air at the moment, which brings us into the next part of the video. So that's a lot of the stuff that I really love about ESO, but there was a however added to my recommendation. Although no, this isn't going to be me telling you all of the same old lines about the loot boxes, the subscription, the crafting bag, or the game's DLC model, which they have shifted away from as of this year. All of those usual points of criticism that people make as to why they don't like ESO, that stuff is all well-worn territory. You don't need me to remind you. And if you do need a reminder, there are literally thousands of YouTube videos belaboring all the same stuff, complaining about the game. But the point is, by now, you should probably know or not if you're okay with how ESO monetizes their game and the whole optional, but maybe not really so optional if you're going to play the game every day, subscription service that they have. Now, if you are okay with how it's monetized, like I am, ESO is 100% an easy recommendation. Once more, this game is one of my top 3 favorite ongoing MMOs. I have had so much fun with the game over the past 12 years, gotten so many hours of entertainment. Genuinely, I really like this game. No, for me, that, however, the asterisk, the caveat to my recommendation for playing this game, really right now boils down to all the stuff that's occurred over the past few weeks. Now, I don't think you should let any of this news stop you from enjoying the game, but you should be aware of what's going on because there's been a lot going on. Really, all of this stems from the recent massive round of layoffs at the hands of Microsoft, and as it pertains specifically to Elder Scrolls Online, ZeniMax Online Studios has lost around 50% of their staff. Now, losing half of your development team, that will certainly have a massive impact. But it is worth noting they had a lot of people working at the studio. Most recent numbers put ZeniMax Online Studios at roughly 500 employees prior to these layoffs. And thanks to the warn notice that was filed in early July, we now know for sure it was 213 people that were let go from the studio in the most recent round of layoffs, which would still put ZeniMax Online Studios at somewhere just shy of 300 employees currently. And that is not a small number of people. In fact, to put it in perspective, it's apparently around the same number that they had when they have made some of their best new content for the game. According to Jessica Folsom, who is the Associate Director of Community Management for ZOS, the studio is now at the same size that it was when they made both the Hrothgar and Somerset chapter updates back in 2015 to 2018. And these are considered some of the best updates that the game has ever gotten. Also, it was right around the same time when ZeniMax Online Studios began hiring more people to not only work on ESO, but also, that was when they began development for Project Blackbird. Project Blackbird, if you're unaware, was a third-person sci-fi MMO looter shooter that spent around 8 years in development, but then got canceled by Microsoft last year in 2025. So in the time since 2018, they kept hiring more and more people for both Project Blackbird as well as ESO, eventually doubling in size. Now, when Blackbird got canceled last year, they did in fact let go of quite a few people, but they kept many as well. Now, I don't know exactly who went where and what people got shuffled around from working on one project to another, but the main point here, I guess, is that as of just earlier this year, they had nearly twice the number of developers working at the studio than what they had in 2018. Now, I do not say this at all to be dismissive of the over 200 people who have just lost their jobs. I'm entirely empathetic to the situation. I mean, it sucks. Like, it is devastating losing your job, losing your income source, no matter who you are. I absolutely hope that everybody lands on their feet, finds a new source of income, hopefully, ideally, doing something that you love and are passionate about as soon as possible. Like, my best wishes out to everybody who is affected by these layoffs and the wider layoffs across Microsoft and the whole games industry and the whole world, I guess. But I do say this, I'm making this point just to put in perspective the current size of the studio and what that might mean for the future of Elder Scrolls Online, the topic of this whole video. Overall, I think ESO is a great game. Like, if you enjoy MMOs, but you've never played this, you should absolutely give the game a go at some point. It does so many things very well with its massive world, loaded with players, and chock full of some really cool, interesting content, whether you're a fan of PvE, PvP, or both. All the recent layoffs, they absolutely suck, and it's certainly not a good thing for the future of the game, but I also don't think it's a guaranteed death knell like some people are claiming either. The content cadence will be slower, that's for sure, probably for at least the next year or so as they get their bearings, but they also, evidently, as we just discussed, still have a similar team size to what they had when they have released what's considered some of their best updates. So it's not that they are lacking in number of developers to still, in theory, make good content. It's not all the same people, but I'm also not going to sit here and say, well, they only kept everyone who's bad at their jobs, and so now there's no way we get any more good updates. I mean, maybe that's the case, but maybe not. They certainly lost a lot of seniority and experience, and that definitely doesn't help, I guess, beyond the spreadsheet, because those people were getting paid more. Speaking of which, end of the day, that is what Microsoft is doing here. They're trying to reduce their spend while maintaining profits so that the return on investment, i.e. how many dollars they spend to how much they get in return, this looks better. And these layoffs will in fact make those numbers better, at least in the short term. Long term, that's a different story, and the outcome will entirely depend on how well ESO is maintained, what new content it gets, and if all of that is satisfactory enough to keep the existing player base happy, playing, and of course spending money, and we will see how all of that pans out in the coming years. I think it's also possible, as Kira discussed in a recent video of his, that Microsoft could currently be engaging in the rather ominous sounding practice of harvesting, more or less kind of placing ESO in a form of maintenance mode and redirecting whatever money it does make to other Microsoft investments that have higher earnings potential. There's also another real possibility, and looking at the larger picture, that Microsoft is just trying to improve their books for a potential changing of Xbox, a spin-off. Now, that could be them selling the division to some conglomerate of investors, assuming no single company is willing or able to buy them outright, or spinning it off as an independent entity separate from Microsoft, restructuring the company as a wholly owned subsidiary, or forming a joint venture. There were reports of this potential restructuring or spinning off, or whatever form it could take, prior to all these like 3,000 plus layoffs that Microsoft just did across ZeniMax Online Studios and a lot of other studios. So all of this stuff is potential in terms of what's going on behind the scenes here. I will say though, to the main topic of this video, either way, whatever the future holds for Elder Scrolls Online, I still think it is worth checking out today. I don't know if the game is still going to be here in 5, 10, or 15 years from now. I mean, I hope it is, but if it's not, I'll just enjoy it while I can. There's no need to let the fact that the game may not be available in the future prevent me from having a good time with it today. Or in other words, don't rob yourself of the opportunity to enjoy something right now just because it won't exist forever. Nothing does. right? And for the 3 weeks that I spent revisiting the game recently, I got like another 100+ hours of fun. Like, it's been great. Yeah, I really like ESO. And initially I was expecting this video to be a kind of bog standard, should you play ESO in 2026, where I just go over my recent revisit, talk about what I like, talk about what could still use some improvements. And I did want to touch on some of the stuff, but I think just like the punchline here is that, yeah, I think ESO is awesome. Yes, I think you should absolutely play it. If you haven't in a while, it's definitely a great MMO. It's worth checking out. It's in my top 3. WoW, ESO, Guild Wars 2. I love these games. I keep coming back year after year. They've given me so much entertainment over the years. So yes, check out ESO if you haven't yet. Be aware of the tumultuous time that they're going through, but don't let that stop you from having fun with it today. If you want to check it out, just check it out, dude. Just spend time. We're here for entertainment. We're here to have some fun. Have some fun with the game while it's still here. That is all for today. Thank you as always for watching. Of course, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. But other than that, I will see you in the next one. Take it easy, guys. Also, yes, I know there's a hole in my shirt, dude. I don't care. I'm going to keep these shirts until they fall off my body, okay? That's just how it's going to work, all right?